Welcome to the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Comics Festival, an event in which Spain is the guest country. First of all, I want to thank to help and support provided by the Finnish Comics Society, the Spanish Embassy in Finland, and the Foundation for the Promotion and Study of Narrative in Image. Thanks to the support and dedication of all the people involved, it has been possible to make this a reality. Today we meet with Fernando Dagnino. He born in 1973 in Madrid, in the 20th century, like me. And when I received his CV, I smiled because textually I read. At 5, he tell his parents he want to be a comic book artist. Nobody took it seriously. I understand why. I imagine that someone actually, some teenager in Spain, say to their parents that want to be a comic book artist. Well, I think the situation changed. I don't know how much changed, but I think the situation changed. But in the 70s, I born in the 60s, he born in the 70s. In the 60s and in the 70s and even in the 80s, to be I think the problem is that people have no idea how is the life of a comic book artist. That's the thing. Because you see, you find it in Spain. I told many times, Spain was a country that during almost a decade, every 15 days, there are some comic book series that sold 2 million of copies. That is incredible. Even from the, for example, for the French standard, that one comic series sold 4 million of issues per month is incredible. But I don't know if the people understand how difficult it is to create a comic book. How much time you need to spend, write, draw, and edit this comic book. I think for that reason, if someone in Spain in the 20th century and even today told to his parents, say, I want to be a comic book artist, probably their parents look at him or her and say, are you crazy? I think this is the more accurate answer from this. For that reason, he studied English literature. But one day he understand that he want to be a comic. He want to be an artist because you're in 1997. Wow, you work with Disney, West Disney Imagineer in LA, in design of attraction of Disney Quest in Disney World, Florida. First at all, hello, thank you very much to say yes to my invitation. And now explain me how do you design in Disney? Because sounds really good, but I have no idea.
Well, hello, and thank you for the invitation.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, there are many issues you raised there, and let's start with the first one. That's me working for Disney. That was a coincidence. I mean, I remember it was my first work there. My first work at an office. I mean, I started like illustrating from my own house, but my first work, like being at a place, was a company that hired me in 1996. It was called Silicon Artist, and they had this project to work with because they belonged to a company called Compaq. There was a hardware provider. So Compaq will provide, I mean, the computers to a new attraction that Disney was building that was called Disney Quest.
Yes.
So in exchange for Compaq, like, I mean, handing out the computers, they asked, like, will you let us, a little company based in Spain, like to do an attraction for Disneyland? So they said yes, and it was kind of a video game. So what happened is when I first entered there, the art director had been fired because, I mean, not really fired, but had been discarded by Disney. They were really in love with the way he worked, so they got me, and I was so lucky that my first job was to go to LA. So they sent me to LA to work for Disney, and so I had to learn really fast, like Photoshop and other utensils, because I was totally a digital analphabet back then. So I had to hook up really fast, and I mean, the months I stayed there I was 24 back then. So that was a really, really nice experience to be able to go to LA, to go to the Disney studios, to have meetings with all these Disney-like executives and learn how they proceeded, which was mostly me living in a hotel, actually swapping one hotel from the other to the other, and then working there and making me repeat the design over and over for months until we got back to the original one. So
Yes, but
yeah.
no, but it is, and because I in different area, but I begin to collaborate and work with Disney in the 80s and in the 90s in Spain. I believe because now I have here in Finland I have good relation with the marketing director and public relation of Disney Finland Oy. That's the company that distributes Disney movies, Disney and Fox and Lucasfilm and wherever. But in the middle between when I left Spain and I arrived to Finland, I feel that work with Disney in the 80s and the 90s was in some way more easy than work today. I think now it's a huge company and you need to do because I remember, for example, when I attend the opening day from Buena Vista Home Entertainment, the video section of Walt Disney in Spain. And was a really nice. Roy Disney came to Madrid to say hello and open officially the new company, and was not so complicated to work with Disney. I think that was in 1993. Was the same year that the Beauty and the Beast was in the movie theater. And I stayed in the university. I worked from a media, and I worked from a radio in Madrid and from the university in Madrid too, organize events and things like that, and do things with the movie companies. And I remember that moment. I was like you. I was 26 years old, something like that. I have not too much experience. My background is nothing if you compare. But I remember this moment, and I say I really enjoy this relation with not only with Disney but especially with Walt Disney. And after that, when I continued to, was a little bit more complicated. And when I arrived in Finland, in the beginning I have any relation with Walt Disney, Oy, but from the last, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years, I have much more close relation, especially with the person in charge. And here is quite much more easy if you compare with. But I have colleagues in media and say, no, now work with Disney is a little bit more complicated than that moment. After this, continue to do things, design video game, all serious jobs, especially in our country. Illustrate journal books, magazines, and work in publicity. Something this is another thing you and me have in common. You work in many different public agencies. I work too. In 2007 is when he wrote and drew his first graphic novel, Cassandra y la Rebelión. Wow, that is something that is not everyone. I know many comic book artists that for them it's so difficult to write and to draw the comic. And I believe because this is the main reason, because now I am talking with Fernando. The main reason is the editor of this album, José Luis Córdoba, the former editor-in-chief of Panini España, because he's not only an amazing editor, he's a wonderful public relation. And the second time I met with José Luis, he spent 20 minutes talking about you, about your job. And when I finish and I want to say, do you have, and say, but you need to wait because the first edition is sold out. And say, wow. After 20 minutes, I need to wait. But 2 months after, when I arrived in a comic book festival, he gave me this special edition with more pages and more things. But I think Cassandra is your first graphic novel or first comic?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yes. First of all, I think one of the reasons you mentioned I went like from one field to the other was that, I mean, as you told, whenever I finished my studies, I was nothing. I was just I had a degree in English philology. So then my goal was to do anything, just to go on working as an artist, never to stop drawing. That was my first goal. So that's why I had to jump from one place to the other. I mean, knowing that my latest, goal was to draw comics. But even then, I knew that I had to practice a lot. So the only way of practicing was to go on working and earning a living, because of course I had to earn a living with what I drew. So that's what I went on from video games to publicity to illustration. And then, the Cassandra was my first. Actually, it's a real graphic novel, because it's written. I mean, it's text written, but then when it changes to action, it goes to panels. So most of the descriptions are in text. Some of the dialogues are in text, but mostly it's action and dialogues that then it changes to a panel-like sort of narrative. That's a problem with that. First it wasn't like a big publisher. It was a publisher called Puerto Norte Sur, and distribution was a problem because they had to compete like with the Harry Potter and all these things. So I was hard in Spain, and secondly because in the bookstores they had no idea where to place it.
Yes.
Whether to place it on the comic book shelves, or on the graphic novels, or on fantastic novels. So I used to go to every different bookstore and find it in different places, and I would change it manually myself.
No, and this is our thing that people here in Finland need to understand. During many years, I born in Gran Canaria, but I moved to Madrid in 1988. And for example, in Madrid, there are, I don't know how many, but in that moment, there are several libraries specialized in comic and other things. But the normal libraries, they don't know what to do with comics.
Yeah.
And even they don't know what to do with books, illustrate books from youngers, because they are, and it's so sad because they are really good artists, they are really good illustrators, they are really good writers from younger, from boys, from teenagers, from childs, but they are not the same tradition like in France or United Kingdom or even in Finland. And for example, you name it a really good example. I remember the first time I read something about Harry Potter was in a Spanish newspaper. In Saturday this newspaper have a special section of books, and there are not a big article. It's a big newspaper, only something like that, half of the page. And I remember that near to my home in that moment, there are two libraries. One is from text from university and normal books. And in that moment, now no, but in that moment, this library have a small place only from children's and teenagers, and I saw the two first volume of Harry Potter in the window, and I decided to take the first. It's more smaller to compare with the older, that the last are so bigger. But the Harry Potter was in the middle of nowhere. They are not a specific place. And for example, comic, there are a few examples that, because everyone know, like Mortadelo or Asterix and Obelix, they have their own stand. But the art comic book are in three different places, not in one specific place. You go, for me, for example, was not a shock, but it's a different approach. The first time I came to the snack in Paris, they have one big, huge section only from comics. It's you have two 2 rooms only from books and 1 only from comic, and it's so huge, it's so amazing. And you know, the people know where to put everything, because it's the snack, it's France. But you see the same snack in Madrid, and the comic are in 3 different places.
Yeah, well, it depends, but I mean, you're really touching there. I think that's the main problem. And you were mentioning like how in the 80s there were comic books that sold like 3 million copies or 2 million copies. That's because they had the kiosk as a reference. People would go to the kiosk, and it was really popular. And the same thing happened in Italy with Bonelli. I mean, the
Exactly.
sales of
Something
Bonelli were
disappeared.
really been amazing. But because they had the kiosk reference, and ever since the 90s, where the specialized bookstore took over the selling of comics, there was a change, because it was a kind of it was getified. I mean, it was okay because we received like more variety, the new titles, of course, and a wider range of offer. But at the same time, it was getified. It was just like the lair for the comic book freaks.
It's true.
Whereas the kiosk was something really popular. I mean, anyone could walk to the kiosk and buy
Exactly. You find
the newspaper and the comic.
every city, this is in a big,
Yes.
for example, in Tenerife, in the island in front of Gran Canaria, there are 2 kiosks from I think from the 50s, and everyone know where these places are, and everyone use the reference to go to some place, and they are not so big. They are, you compare with, for example, the same place in Madrid and Barcelona. So these kiosks are smaller, but you go to Tenerife and you ask, where is this place? Go to that, and when you see the kiosk, turn left or turn right. Everyone know the place, not from the place itself, from these small shops in one corner of the. And it's true, when all this disappear and you need to go to one specific place to buy comics, it's like a weird place. No, this is, the people don't understand what happened inside this shop, and there are libraries that try to offer not only books, try to offer illustrate books and comic. They don't know what to do. And now I know, because when I travel to Spain, Barcelona, or in Gran Canaria or Madrid or wherever, now there are good comic book and children's section. But in the 80s and in the 90s, and even in the beginning of the 21st century, the owner of this place have no idea what to do. And you see, they don't know, it's put in the middle of nowhere, and because they have text and illustration. What we do with this? And I don't know. It's not so difficult.
The problem is too is what you mentioned, that, for example, in France, you get really that children are really taken care by publishing companies, and they do products for them. They know they're the readers of the future, so they really have to be taken care of. Whereas in Spain, this getification of the specialized bookstores, they just forgot about kids, about children,
Yes.
for 1 decade. So then, of course, I mean, video games appeared, and other sorts of entertainment appeared. Of course, it's hard to compete with them. But if you haven't really breathed like the reader from an early age, it's really hard now. And now they're starting to do it. I hope it's not too late. But places like the FNAC and huge like malls and bookstores that have more space, because it requires more space. It's really efficient, because those are the readers of the future, and reading is a habit.
Yes.
I mean, so you have to really, I mean,
You need to begin to read. I
train
know.
that muscle.
I know. If
Yes.
you is and it's true. But it's like, unfortunately, it's the same problem with the comic festival in Spain. Now, no. Now, in the last maybe 10 years, fortunately, the situation changed a lot. But during the 80s, 90s, and the beginning of the 20th century, the comic festival, the target is between 25 to 50. There are one of the things I always remember when I attend San Diego Comic Convention was the last day, Sunday between 1 to 5, because the con closed at 5 the last day. For me, it was a shock to meet a lot of parents with small kids, even babies.
Yeah.
And you imagine this San Diego Convention Center is a huge place, and you imagine here in the United States with this type of comic convention, it's a much more a media convention because everyone is inside this place. No, I remember to meet, especially one of the things I remember, I think time to time is one man with a small girl around 5-6 years old, dressed like a bad girl with a DC bag with comics, and the woman have a baby here, a 3 months old baby with a blue dress and a small red cape with the sign of Superman.
Yeah.
And was something so I remember because I walking around with my wife, and we stop and say, oh, we need to talk with this woman because the girl was very happy with this comic. She showed us every comic, but we talked with the Mar. The Mar really likes Superman character, and she decided to attend San Diego Comic Convention with a 3 months older boy. Is sleeping, but with a Superman dress. Well, the cape was something like that. But for me was an amazing experience because this girl with 6 years old, the mother told us that she began to read in that moment. And she began to read with 6-7 years old when they have 30, 40, read everything, maybe before. And it's good because the parents, we only met with the mother, but the mother told us that both of them read comics too. And this is the best, the door you need to open is you want that your kids read. And the last time I attended Barcelona Comic Festival in 2019, Sunday, I meet with parents with small kids. It was the first time, and I began to attend Barcelona in 2004.
Yes.
And this year, in 2019, 2 years ago, because this last 2 years there are any physical Barcelona Comic Festival, was the first time in my life I met and talked with parents with kids between 3, 4, 5 years old, and even small babies in the brand. That's what the first time. And I attended San Diego in 2012, and I talked with people inside the organization. No, it's quite common. Sunday is the day that the parents come to with a small kid and say, "Wow, that is something." But that is the difference between the Spanish graphic market and the American graphic market. They keep all this detail in the best way possible. I come to the Marvel stand with the children of our friends there in San Diego, and one editor look at us and gives a button with all the characters. I don't say anything. This person look at us and say the kid one is 8 in that moment one is 8 years old and the other is 6. And this editor, and he present like a Marvel editor, and say, "No, I saw you," and take something in there and put, "Do you want this?" and give no one button, give, I don't know, maybe 20 different characters, and say, "These things don't happen in Spain."
No.
And it's so sad because to read is an habit. But you need to keep the new generation, because if the new generation begin to read, wow, it's wonderful, because they continue to read.
They will go on reading. Yes, that's it.
That's the thing. And after that, 1 year later, you sign with DC Comics. Wow, you begin in Disney and you sign with DC Comics. Wow, and you work 6 years. You have I don't believe in luck, but wow, you arrive in the same in exactly the same moment. Well, and you work and you pencil and inker in Superman, Supergirl, Batman and the Outsider, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, Justice League, Resurrection Man, and Suicide Squad. Well, one thing, because I am very grateful because you send me a lot of material, and you sent me 2 pages from the Suicide Squad, and are amazing and awesome, because it's the Joker. Please don't see this page in the night, because this pages are inside the virtual exhibition about Fernando jobs, but are really amazing. And I like color, but one thing I really enjoy Smart Girl is because it's in black and white.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Thanks.
Not every, unfortunately, the new generation don't understand how difficult, but how wonderful, even how beautiful is the black and white.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I mean, there were two main reasons for doing Smart Girl in black and white. The first one was money.
I understand.
So, and color was very costful in time and in if you hired someone to do it, in paying that someone.
Yes.
And secondly, of course, knowing I would do it in black and white, I'm a big fan of black and white comics. Actually, one thing I like about comics, I mean, ever since I was a kid, is that they force you to do a creative reading. And that's I mean, connected to what we talked about before, having the kids like familiarized with comics since early age, is that you get familiarized with the creative reading in the sense that there's no music, there's no animation, and sometimes there's no color. So you have to, I mean, complete these other elements are lacking with your own imagination. And I don't know if it happened to you, but for me, I mean, I've read many comics in black and white, and I remember them in color. Because I have attached, I don't know if I'm synesthetic or what, but I have attached this, I mean, these colors to the scenes, and it's like a movie in my mind. But then if you realize it's just plain paper, bidimensional characters, and that's the magic of comics. It's not something that compels you, that really like a video game or even like a cinema. I mean, it leaves you like an empty space for you to create, to pour yourself on the narrative as a creator too. It's a creative reading.
No,
That's
no,
what I really like about.
it's for me, in my particular case, I begin to read books and comics around 6, 7 years old. But I have in my mind there's something from the I need to explain. Well, DC was bad published in Spain or forbidden directly during many years.
Yeah.
50s, 60s, even in the 70s. And Marvel began to publish from a company, editorial, Vertice. And this company decided to make something similar a manga. I don't have any example here, but the format was in that size, approximately. The Vertigo, the original Marvel comics was in black and white, and they use normally 2 panels per page.
I
Not,
remember, yes.
and I have, for example, I have uh, many of Daredevil. In that moment in Spain, Daredevil was Dan Defensor. That was fun. And I have many of Daredevils and Spider-Man in this format. Was the only thing in color was the cover was made was a very famous illustrator, Rafael Lopez Espí.
Yes.
I have had the great honor to meet with Rafael in Barcelona. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I have two original from Captain America hanging one of the wall of my home, and I continue the relation with Rafael from the last maybe 10 years. And for my generation, and even from your generation, Marvel was the painting of Rafael Lopez Espí, but Marvel was in black and white. And black and white with the aesthetic of a pulp novel, because the paper that use Vertice was like a Dog Savage or The Shadow or wherever, because the paper is not white paper, it's much more like the pulp paper. But it's true. I in the first year of the university, one of my teachers give to us a list with books you need to read from when you stay in university. And the first book I chose was How to Read Image from a sociology, North American sociology, Diane Dundis. And this woman spent all her book to explain that you need to understand how to read letters, how to read sign, and how to read image. And it's a English. In that case, was as the Spanish translation of this book. Original is in English. And I know this before because I organize my mind with image much more than with letters. Because even if the people don't believe, I don't really like to write. To write when I was a child or when I was a teenager. I begin to be a writer or something similar older with after when I was a post-teenager was when I decided that I really enjoy. But I spent, I think, all my childhood when I was a teenager reading comics. The first comics I read was Walt Disney comics. Here in Finland, Disney comics is Akwanka. Akwanka is Donald Duck in Finnish. And all the small kids begin to read Akwanka. And I begin to read Dumbo, was exactly the same version, but in Spanish. And after that, I continue to read Disney comics with Marvel because I don't remember. I think I was a teenager the first time I read something. No, I was more smaller because there are one Argentinian editorial Novaro that published Batman and Superman.
That was Mexican.
Mexican, exactly, Mexican.
Yes.
Mexican editorial that published Superman and Batman, and I read when I was 6, 7, 8 years. So my first Superman comic was because I win a contest to write in my class when I was 7 years old, and I have this comic in the wall because in a frame because it's too old and the size is smaller than originally. But to read comics from Novaro was a little bit complicated to compare. With the only choice, we don't have any other choice. But I yes, organized all my life, try to understand image, and in one moment I decide to put letters in the middle. For example, when I write something about, I show you before that when I write something about one comic, I use, if you see, I put post-its in every panel I understand. But normally I organize, I try to think, I try to remember what panel or what page I really like. I read normally when I write something about a comic, I read the comic 3 times. The first time is I sit down and read. I don't think too much. The second time is when I begin to try to find the things I really like. And the third time is when I begin to take notes and everything. And I do exactly the same with a movie because for me it's more easy to remember the image and put the letters behind until think with letters and find the image. And this woman, Diane Dundee, say that every child needs to understand how to read different language. And it's something, for example, in Spain, actually in the 21st century, I don't know if there are places, schools, even high schools, when the teacher try to try to teach to the younger generation how to read all the input you receive every day. Because when you are smaller and I am smaller, there are a few input. They are advertising in the street, they are advertising the TV, but now I don't know how many input you receive only in one day.
Well, imagine with the cell phones and
exactly
computers.
with the Facebook, with Instagram, with whatever, and the people don't know how to read this. And it's so sad because if you have some idea, some filter, you know how to even you stop and you focus only in the thing you really like. But and even when you tell the difference between the specialized libraries from comic books and the kiosk, in the kiosk there are many things, but you have a small section with comic, and what's more easy to find something now? Sometimes you go to a big comic book shop, and there are too many options. You don't know what to choose, and even and if you you try to find something, because if you try to find something through previews and you have the physical catalog, I have the previews over my table, and you sit down and begin to, and you have the choice to stop, continue to read, stop again, move. But sometimes in the library there are too many options. You don't know what to. You want, and you don't have, even if you have all the money in the world, you don't have all the time in the world to read. And that's the thing, it's a totally different approach. Maybe because you are me are older, if you compare with the new generation, and you and me have the capacity to see the difference between the 70s, 80s, 90s, and this 21st century. Because for the new generation, from the people between 5 to 20, there are many things that actually it's impossible to see.
But
They
I
are
mean,
disappearing.
I think you're right in the sense that we're from another generation, and we like take into account different channels of communication, and of course the new ones. I mean, it's really like an overload of information. But for example, for the new generations, and in respect to, in regards to what you said, I think that the function of podcasts, of YouTubers, of influencers that are selling and highlighting different like, I mean, comics. Of course, some of them are paid by publishers to highlight them, but I mean, more and more we find, like, I mean, channels with reviews. I mean, videos in which they review the comics. I mean, and many of them, they're really exhaustive. I mean, they give a
It's
thorough
true.
review, a thorough. So, and that's it. I think that's a modern way to highlight, to select for the young readers. I mean, which one they should read, which one maybe they're interested in. Of course, I mean, the problem with that is they highlight, of course, some members of the mainstream, and then some small ones belonging to small publishers that will be left behind and will pass away without being noticed.
Unfortunately, these things happen exactly in the libraries, because
Yes,
sometimes you
right.
always say the same books, the same comic in the main shelf and the small comics in the other shelf. That's the thing. That this problem is behind the control of everyone. You need to. I think that I like the idea of preview, because you have the choice only in one place. In that case, only in one book. You see everything, but you need to
Yes.
spend time. One of the reason I don't want to stay in one place to see the previews. I prefer to buy, because sometimes I spend 2-3 days see the previews. It's the only way, because
Reviews,
it's
yes.
not it's impossible. I remember that when I began to order things to previews in one library in Gran Canaria, one day I told the owner, you have you had the choice to put some table with some chair to sit down and read the preview, because the idea is you put in up and spend 2 hours, and it's impossible. And
Yes.
he find a small table and a small chair in the second floor of the library. The library was smaller, but they have the right place. And I remember to go to the library when the library opened at 4 in the afternoon, and spend 3 hours sitting down and see all the previews. And it's when I began. He understand that with this system, all the people that copy, because that was my idea. I was the person that asked from this. But after that, many people do exactly the same. And it's when the owner understand that now our order was more bigger, because we have more time. We are sit down. We don't need to stay up, and we have the opportunity to see wherever until we decide to finish. And that's the thing. You find everything in the same place, and it's when you have the opportunity to see not only the big name, you have the opportunity to see even smaller.
All of this,
But
yes.
that, I think this is the good thing with this industry, is you have time. It's the reason I really like the one of the reason I really like the comic festival. I really enjoy to organize comic festival, but I really enjoy to stay 1 day or two walking around, to see a small editors, to know new comic book artists, and to find things like, say, wow, this is great, and come to your home and begin to read, and the next day return to the same stand and talk with the authors. In that case, I think this is something Jose Luis made really well. Because I know that the Evolution comic was his idea, because
Yes.
Panini don't need Evolution Comic. Panini is one of the most bigger company that publish everything, trading card, books, comics, and wherever. But he understands that with this umbrella, it's more easy for the owner of the library specialized in comic book to put your comic not in the same level that Marvel and DC, but near, because Evolution is part of Panini. And I think he was very brave to do this kind of thing, because without this, it's quite difficult, because the market is so huge. There are thousands of different, and unfortunately, Spider-Man, I put that, or Superman is a big name, and over Spider-Man or over Superman, there are anyone. Behind everyone is down.
Yes, that's. I mean, you're totally right. First of all, I think we should celebrate like the figure of Jose Luis, because he did wonderful things. One of them was creating Evolution Comics, as you said, under the umbrella of Panini, like being the publisher of Marvel Comics in Spain, but in other parts of Europe they publish DC Comics and Marvel Comics too.
Yes.
And then being able to make up this space for local comic book makers to publish. And secondly, I think you mentioned another key aspect, and it's the huge offer. I mean, every month there being millions of books and comics are being published. So on the bookstore shelves, I mean, you're really happy to publish your own comic, but then like in 3 weeks' time, it will be like totally covered with new comics
Or
that
in
haven't
two, even in two, it's
so it's so hard to stay on the shelf. I mean, I know that of course it's about sales, but there's a way of. I mean, some sales need to be like it's like a water drop. No, they go little by little. It's not always that you start with a huge bestseller. Some bestsellers have started like with this drop, little by drop, and start selling. And now it's hard to make it, because it's going to be overflooded by the rest of the novelties. I mean, arriving to the bookstore. So that's the thing we should take into account too. I mean, it's hard to open your way.
No, it's a really a real war against everyone, because everyone want a little space, and unfortunately you don't have enough space from everyone. That is it's a to be an editor. When Jose Luis explained me that he spent 12 years in a book company, and he decided to move to Panini, and say, why? Because it's not enough for you to stay in a big book company, and now you move to a big comic book company. Because I think he really understands. He know how to do. He have a incredible head, and he know exactly how to organize. But not everyone has the capacity to stay 25, 30 years in that area and know what to do, because it's so difficult. The next step is so much wonderful. You left DC and go to Dark Horse and do Captain Midnight, Tarzan, and Plague of Apes. You make Tarzan. Sorry, I really like Burroughs.
Okay.
It's you decide to leave DC because you are tired, or you decide to go to another editorial because you want to do new things, or?
No, I mean, it wasn't my decision. I mean, to be honest, I mean, the 6 years in DC Comics, they were really, of course, like a dream come true. And, but there were like many other subjects on the way, I mean, like really affected me. One of them was the really, really tight deadlines at the end, especially with when doing Suicide Squad. The deadlines were like, we were working a three-week pace per issue. And that was really nasty. And then, of course, I mean, some extra artistic relations I wasn't really happy with. So, I mean, things changed. I got fired from the Suicide Squad. I mean, even though it was a very good seller. I mean, we were on the 35 out of 100 best top sellers. But I mean, those were crazy days with the New 52, and everything was really very topsy-turvy. So they decided to fire me. Then they fired the writer. Then they fired the editor. It was like, I mean, like a chain reaction of firing. But for me, at that stage, I was really happy because I was totally stressed. I was about to get to burning out. Fortunately, I didn't. And when I changed to Dark Horse and then to others, Valiant, I mean, for me, it was really like a balsam. I needed some time to relax, and it came there. So I need to I mean, there comes times in life where you need to like settle and then regain your love for comics. You're not just an industry puppet, like, I mean, filling panels as if there was nothing else to do. You need to feel it. You need to be involved with that. And then afterwards, I did a big change, which was I was working with my agent. I had an agent like for 8 years. I mean, to be totally honest, it was thanks to him that I got involved in DC Comics for the first time. But I was really not really happy with the way things were handling. So I decided to break up the relation in a friendly manner and to then go on my own. That was a huge change for me because I had to start all over, like building up the relations once again, going back to New York over and over, building up the network. And that was really, really a hard thing. I'm still doing it nowadays, but I think I've grown really up a lot. So then the next thing for me was Valiant, which was really, for me, was a success. I had help Jose Villarrubia helped me a lot there to build the relations with Valiant, with the editors. And that was kind of the beginning of this new period for me, in which I'm working more as an author, writing and drawing, and at the same time handling my business myself, which is like, it's like another work in itself, because nowadays with networks and everything, you need like to just keep some time just for promotion, and the rest just for, I mean, and to work, of course.
Yes, because it's quite difficult. Actually, you need to be a
Salesman.
the OMAC, the Jack Kirby OMACs, the army of only one man, because you need to keep many things in. Is trust me, this is something I really understand, especially not only in this event, in other event you need to do a lot of things that normally you never believe you need to do. And after that, you decide, I don't know exactly why, spend 3 years to do this thing. And well, the first, I need to say something before. I really like sci-fi. It's one of the things I really enjoy. I am very proud to say that I was this guy that I saw Blade Runner, the first version of Blade Runner in 1982. I think in the day was the movie was in the movie theater. In that moment, the movie was a flop. Anyone go to see Blade Runner? 10 years after, I saw the second version in Madrid, and 10 years after, I saw the third version in with people from the original stuff in Sitges, and in the middle, I met 2 times with Ridley Scott, and I have the opportunity to talk about Blade Runner with Ridley Scott.
Wow.
Yes, Ridley Scott was the person that told me that Philip K. Dick, he saw Blade Runner the first copy on before he died, and he was very happy with the new version because he wrote in some way the first draft of the screenplay, and he was the person that changed many things. There are, during these 30 years, many people say, no, this is the spirit of the original novel. No, Ridley Scott really enjoyed how, Philip K. Dick really enjoyed how Ridley Scott recreate Blade Runner. And he have the opportunity. I think Philip K. Dick died 2-3 months before the movie was in the movie theater. But Ridley Scott invited him to see the movie because it's his idea and it's one of the most famous novels. And I really like sci-fi. I really like Asimov. I really like Philip K. Dick. I really like Heinlein. I really like all the dystopic novel made between the 50s to the 70s. And for me, it was a shock when I read this, because when I received the first version, I read in the plane. I normally, not now, but normally I spend a lot of time
What?
reading everything. So,
My dog, my dog.
good dog. Don't worry.
Sorry, someone rang and my dog went crazy.
Don't worry.
Oh my God. Sorry.
I say that normally I read a lot of comics inside a plane, waiting to take a plane or inside a plane. And the first time I read the original version of Small Girl was in a plane. And the second time was no, the second time was in Valencia when Jose Luis gave me this. But the first time I read a Small Girl in a plane between Gran Canaria to Finland. And the second time was in Valencia 1.5 years ago. And for me it was a shock because I say, wow, because this inside the Small Girl there are I think that I really like many part of this, but I really like how you use the reference. Because if you want to find things, you have the opportunity to find things inside Blade Runner, Terminator, iRobot, 1997 Escape to New York, whatever you want, even some reference to Batman, even some reference to any other character, even some reference from Marvel, even some reference from manga too. But you use, I think, in the best way possible. You use because everyone have background. When I read something, I believe, for example, when I choose to write something more bigger than 2, 3, 4 pages, when I write an essay with 100 to 300 pages, it's because I really like this topic. And not only like, I have enough background to accept the quest. Say, I want to write something about this topic. And I write because I have enough material, enough books and papers and whatever, but I have in my mind enough reference to sit down and begin to read. Without this is quite difficult. And when someone asks me to do something I have no reference, for me has been a nightmare because I need to spend months study. And at the last, you know many things in the theoretical way, but not, you don't have feelings, you don't have memories about this. It's so, somewhat is so impersonal. It's different when you really like something and you have the memories. For example, in that case of the runner I explained before, I saw the 3 different versions and I read a lot of, I read the original novel and I read a lot of material. I have the opportunity to talk with the original, the director. And when I sit down, I have all these things in my hand, in my head. And when I begin to read my essay about your book, for me it's more easy, sometimes more complicated because I want to put a lot of things and sometimes I need to cut because it's not. But it's quite difficult. But you know how to share the things, how to connect all this influence and put inside. But I know that the question is classical or topic, but why you do decide to spend a lot of time and resource and I don't know how much more to do something like a Small Girl?
Well, of course, it's really it's just a need to tell stories. I've always loved to tell stories, not only to draw them, but to write them. And this is kind of an urge. You just have to do it. So there came a point, I don't know if it was a midlife crisis or what, but I just needed to change. I needed to bet more in comics so I could really obtain more. So the reason, one of the main things I did was I abandoned, drawing for hire for a while, and then because I was trying to do it while drawing for hire, and it's very hard, like to finish your daily job and then go on writing. So I realized I had to stop and focus on that. So I was it was a need. So I had to leave from the commission work I did, and also a comic book I did for France, which they manage like a different pace, so it gives you time to work. And I just needed to do it. It's a shift in my career. It's not just smarter. It's from now on. I'm writing and drawing my own stuff to the point I can do it. And my intention is like in 2 years' time, on 1.5 years, just to live exclusively from what I write and draw. And as what you mentioned is the reference, of course, when you're dealing with the genre you love, like science fiction, especially cyberpunk or cyber noir. I mean, you have to be humble. You need to be humble because I mean, there's so much. So many amazing work. I mean, masterpieces have been done. That you need to pay respect to that. Of course, like humbly realizing that you're making your own little story. Of course, it's nothing compared to those giants. But I mean, the hard thing is first of all to do something that has not been done, whereas while paying due respects to all the Bible that has been done before. That's kind of hard, but if you kind of believe in your story, and I do think that, of course, I've never hidden that Margaret is totally inspired by Philip K. Dick, by Blade Runner the movie, but all many Ghost in the Shell, all those really science fiction classics. But at the same time, I really believe that the core story of the graphic novel tells a new, different story. I mean, I think it brings out a new approach, which is because I mean the core story is quite simple. Of course, it's embedded in a really sophisticated world of sci-fi and cyberpunk. But the core story is it's kind of a emancipation story, a love-hate story. But that's what really what I was really attached to. And of course, the rest of the things were it was so fun. I mean, drawing all these characters and paying these homages. But what really, I mean, got to my heart, to my emotions, is the central story of Yuki. So the idea was to handle both things. I mean, the humbleness of working inside a genre that's already it has been overworked, but I think there are still stories to tell. At the same time, telling your own petty little unique story.
No, I think this is totally true. Is you offered it's possible for someone that like sci-fi recognize many reference, but the main character is not like you see quite often, and this is that, and I really enjoy the approach you do in your job and how you keep all the details because I don't know how much time you spend only from one page, but some pages are you need to spend time to read everything, not only the text because the text is important, but is to try to see everything, every detail, even the dogs look really nice, but you have the capacity to how you organize the page, how you organize the space, how you organize the panels. This is something so difficult because if you don't know how to do, you lost the tempo, you lost the how you need to read. This is something quite difficult. Sometimes it's important to do. Depend how you show the things, you feel different in front of the job, and you know exactly how to do. But it's a I don't know how many pages has because this edition have not any
I
number.
think the new one is almost 200. I think the new one with the extra.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And wow, it's too much from to because you do everything. You
But
draw, you ink, you write. You are not
that's the main
editor, but
difference.
almost.
That's the main difference, like to being able to work in something you believe in, so you're fully committed. I mean, there are no flaws there. You're fully committed to that. So it's you just throw your body and soul there, and that's what for me that's a difference. And I really, I mean, I notice a difference in the quality when I'm doing something I believe in. I mean, most of the times, I mean, scripts are okay, but sometimes, I mean, by the end of the way, when you're like in the middle of a story, you really start to weaken, and then personally, I sometimes get disattached. It's like, I mean, I'm telling stupid things, so I don't get really involved. I mean, but then of course, it's not that I do it better, but I believe more in what I do personally, and the result I think is better. That's why I made this shift in my career. I mean, whether I do it okay or not, that depends, and that will the public will say. But from the internal point of view of my own motivation, there's no
It's much better.
comparison.
I know exactly the feeling, because sometimes you need to do things because you need to pay the bills, but sometimes you need to say stop, because I don't like how things work and I need to do something more personal. I don't receive the same amount of money, but I need to wake up with a different approach, because it's not, and even I don't want to wake up, and this is so sad. You do after that, and you survive. That's the thing. That's the more important thing. You survive to do something like a small girl, and even in Spain, because the book the first edition was sold out, and I think the second is probably the same. And this is nice. There are some. I have faith in my country some time to time, and that was one time. You finished the pencil from the album Legend, published from Glenat, and the Killer miniseries from Valiant, I told you. And now, well, now there are. Small Girl have a version in France, version in Spain was I think the first, and now in October will be the this version of a Small Girl, if everything works properly, because now with the pandemic situation, you order something and you never know if you receive or not and when. But now you are working in Blade Runner Origins, the prequel to the original Blade Runner movie. I understand why, because this is in some way this is the first time I read the Small Girl, I feel that the main character is the sister of Rachel in Blade Runner in some way. Yes, I think that
Yeah, a good way
you
of describing
find
it.
the connection between the two characters, because she have the same. I don't know exactly how to describe, but I remember when the first time you see when you see the first time the actress that made Rachel in St. John in Blade Runner was in that case was only 18 years old, and you see this mix between girl and women some point when it's not a woman but a woman, but not even a girl now anymore, and her attitude in front of Decker is so defensive, but she's very proud of her. And the character from Dark Horse, for a small girl, is so similar. I think the spirit of Rachel in some ways inside your character, and this is really nice, because I always believe that I like Blade Runner, but the female character is not the best. Everything in some ways around Decker, and at last you don't know too much about Rachel.
Yeah,
And when you know something is in the second movie, a lot of year after, when you
yeah,
know something, but you don't never know too much about Rachel. You know that Decker left with her, and Decker stayed with her until she died, but you don't know too much about the female character of Blade Runner. And a small girl, in some ways, what happened with someone like Rachel without Rick Decker around. And I think this is a good approach, especially now in the 21st century, because there are many good stories where the male character is so nice and is well made, but the female character is unfortunately not well made, because in that moment was not important. Always the female character is behind the male character. There are some few examples that everything changed, like Barbarella and especially Modesty Blazy, when the main character is a woman, and it's totally different. But normally it's always, and it's exactly the same in the bigger company Marvel and DC. There are a few exceptions like Captain Marvel in Marvel, but the Captain Marvel, the female version of Captain Marvel is always in some way secondary character until the 21st century. And Black Widow always is behind Daredevil or another character, but or how Egg, or now in the 21st century, not it's Natasha Romanova is Natasha Romanova without anyone, but in the 20th century, it's always behind some heroes, some hero, male hero in that case. And the Small Girl, no, Small Girl is a real hero, a female hero without anyone. She don't need anyone to be free to go out to try to find what happened outside without anyone. And I think it's a really good approach, and especially in a country like Finland where there are not the same problem like in our country between men and women. To be a woman in Finland, we have a prime minister, a female prime minister, and the country war, well, if you compare, you try to do exactly the same in Spain and say, prime female prime minister, are you crazy? And that's the thing, even today in the 21st century. And I think this is the good approach from the Small Girl. I saw a few cover and a few pages of the Blade Runner origin, but tell me, I know that you don't have the choice to do a lot of things when you work inside a project, but someone called to you, you call someone's saw a Small Girl and believe this is the right guy to do Blade Runner, or what happened in the middle?
Well, it's a very funny story because it all started in a convention in Montenegro, Helsinki Festival, which I'm going actually in 2 weeks' time again. So I met there Chris Thompson. He used to be a Titan editor. So I got in touch with him. We got on really well. We're friends. So he said, "Why don't you pitch Smart Girl to the Titan bosses?" So we were meeting again on that same year. It was 2017, I think. We were meeting again on the New York Comic Con. So we met again. And then he introduced me to the bosses of Titan, and I pitched them Smart Girl for the first time. They liked it, but that was it. On the next year, I pitched it again, but now with a physical book because it had been published. So I gave them the book and I said, if you would like to publish it, because to be honest, I've been knocking at every single door of every single publisher in the States, and Smart Girl had been rejected. So the thing is, the connection with Titan was there, and after that was in 2019, I think they offered me the first series. That was Blade Runner 2019, but I had to reject it because I was working on Killers. So on the following year, they asked me again to do Blade Runner Origins, which was the prequel I'm working in. And so part of the deal, I said, okay, I will do it. It's a 12 issue, run. I will do it. And then they offered me to publish Smart Girl also as part of the agreement. So that's why I finally managed to get it published in the UK and in the States next October. And that was really a huge success for me after all those rejections. But then again, it's about insisting and perseverance. And
That you need to. I have in one book, in any of the books, the books is up there. I have one book about the Tom McFarlane. The catalog was one of McFarlane exhibition in New York in MoMA, and I saw before I bought the books. And the first frame in the exhibition is a frame with all the letters that McFarlane received before he began to work in DC and Marvel. Yeah. He keep all these letters, and it's Tom McFarlane, but he decided to keep all this letter. And the first thing you see in this exhibition in the MoMA is the letter that every editor, every comic book company sent to him, say, "Hey, you are not enough good." I think you need to know that even if you believe you have the most wonderful idea, even if it's the most wonderful idea that ever made in this world, but you need to find the right moment. That's the thing. Sometimes it's not it's not. Sometimes it's true. You need to have talent. You need to have qualities, but sometimes you need to knock the door in the moment when anyone do anything and someone say, "Hey, this look nice." On this is exactly, or because we don't have anything more. Uh, I know that many people know the story, but Superman, on the first story of Superman, spent 2 years inside a shell.
Oh, really?
Until William Gaines, Max Gaines, sorry, William was his son. Max Gaines told with someone from National Periodic and say, "Hey, this look nice, publish because why not? You don't have anything more, but I think this is really nice." But Superman spent 2 years, maybe more, inside a shell. Anyone spend put something, and I don't know how Max Gain probably he wrote in the beginning, and when someone say we want to, because was the first issues Action Comic, someone want to publish a new issue and say take this and put in the and put I think that I don't have the exactly the data with that, but it was Max Gain idea to put in the cover of Action Comics. Because now everyone remember this cover, but Superman no when National Period receives Superman no receive one Monday and Friday the comic book is in the market. No. We need to spend 2 years, and I think when Siegel and Schuster receive the call and say what, because we forget something like that after 2 years, and it's true in this industry in every creative area you need to be persistent, you need to spend time, you need to sit down and continue to do your job and knock. Now it's more easy. You have the opportunity to send emails. When
Yes.
you begin to do things and I begin things, we don't have internet. We need to call, we need to send a letter, we need to send a fax, or we need to go to the place and knock the door. Now you don't need to go to any place. You have the opportunity to send 100 emails in one day. Uh, if you
Yeah.
want to do exactly the same
No, but
25 years,
even so, it's important like to go to conventions because as you said, I mean, everyone is able to mail a message, and there are so many mails. I mean, editors they receive like I don't know 400 mails every morning, so yours gets lost in the way. So it's always important like to meet them personally and to go to the conventions and talk to them, pitch it in person. I think it's still important. Although, of course, I mean the contact. It's so much easier with mail, but the first way of pitching, I think it's always good to have it personally.
you, after all this year, attend festival. Now I know that everything changed, but I hope in a near future the situation not return to the same situation that before the pandemic, but something similar. Uh, I suppose that there are some people that attend this meeting that are comic book artists or they want to be. Uh, do you have something to do? Because I agree with you that you need to go to some place, you need to put in front of someone, and you need to talk with someone. But not everyone know how to do. And sometimes I met with people in comic, especially when I organize the event, because I am in some way the person in charge, and I meet with people, and see, I have seen that it's not for me. It's not the best way to show something. But I am not comic book artist. If I want to talk with an editor, I need to put in front of him 100, 200 page, and this person take the manuscript and he send me something maybe 1 2 years, 1 2 2 weeks after that. But if you put in front of someone a portfolio, is in some way more easy and more fast. But you have something to say to some possible comic book artist that he or she is attend this meeting.
I I think that would be too pretentious. I mean, I'm learning myself how to pitch works. I'm learning. I couldn't give an advice because I mean I'm learning it from my own point of view. I mean, so the way I do it, I don't know if it would work for anyone. For me, it's quite hard to sell a pitch. I'm learning. I'm trying to put across information. I think for me, I'm going to tell you the way it works for me. I think it works in the sense that, of course, your work is like an extension of your own personality to a certain extent, of course. So for me, the best way of selling it is just to put across your own personality, your own passion, whatever were the feelings that drove you to write that work. So the publisher, the editor, not only, I mean, gazes at the book, but it gazes at the energy that you're propelling to him, like telling it's about this, it's got this energy, these feelings, this conflict, because it's the conflicts I have in myself. So for me, I mean, it's kind of a theatrical way of selling it, in the sense that it's not just pure information, but it's emotion, and it's your own beliefs and your own perspective of life. For me, that's how I try to pitch it, and I'm not really good at it. I have to improve, but well, it's my way.
No, just I believe because the first time I meet with you, I know for me was more easy because before I meet with you, Jose Luis talked with you and was more easy. But you know how to, because before I meet with you, you are talking with our guys, and I remember to saw how you talk with the art, even smaller. I think even there are one future comic book artist with his portfolio, and he showed to you in Valencia, and you spend time, you see, and you talk with him and say something and sign something and say this is good or bad or try to do different things. I know. I think it's, even if you really believe in your idea, it's quite difficult to put in front of someone and sell, because you never know, because you are very happy and you are very proud, but you need to understand that when you put in front of someone, it's a different person, different feeling, different point of view, and even if you really this person understand to you fast, normally it's not. And I suppose when you want to sell your job, it's more complicated. But I agree with you. If you, when you want to sell something, it's not only the product you want to sell, it's how you do this kind of things. Sometimes in publicities, there are many cars in the market, from some example, but it's how you sell your idea, how you present your product. No, because the difference between one car and another, there are not too many in different lines, but are so similar because the engine is similar and the wheels, everything is in the we use in the same scenario. There are no different car that go to the road flying and go in the water. No, the car only move from one place, and every car have in some way with different engines, with different things, but the scenario is exactly the same. But it's how you sell this car, how you see this car, and how do you want to show to someone and say, don't look at the engine, don't look at look this, because I believe this is the difference between me and the other.
Yes,
and I think this is the before and after. I know this question now. You, before all this thing, you say that now you want to focus more time in do your own job, write and draw and choose. But if you find with some editor the version 2.0 of Jose Luis Cordova, that unfortunately neither do you and me find someone like Jose Luis, but I hope that there are someone similar. And this editor offered to you publish wherever you want. You have some project that you always want to do, but you don't have time, or you don't find any editor that say yes.
I do have many. The problem is I have many. The reason why I wanted to move on to writing and drawing at the same time is that I have so many projects. And yes, there are ones that are more likely to be published, and then they're more like not mainstream, but they're more entertaining. And there are others, for example, I got like 2 projects we are related to language, and that's, I think, that's my philological, I mean, trend like coming, and they like one is related to language in the it's not semiotics, but language, I mean, is part of the story. And I know that maybe that's hard to sell from the point of view of comic books, but maybe on the other side, it's easy to sell as a self-guide, self-help book, because it's about language in itself, but told as a story. And of course, I mean, that for me, I would leave that on the pool of projects. It's on a medium distance. I prefer to start with the closest ones are more entertaining, but of course with some meaning, and I will leave those for afterwards. I mean, that's my plan. I hope I can make it.
We always, I think every creator have plans, and every creator have something you want to do, but you don't find the right moment or the right feeling or whatever, because it's true, when you really like something, you want to focus all your energy, but you need to understand that when you create something, you have, I always say the same, you have regular, bad, and horrible days. Good days, you only have one every 1,000 days. And it's quite difficult because you want to do, but you sit down and you try to do something, but the creativity is not to switch on, switch off the computer. No, unfortunately, there are not any button you push inside and you begin to be a creative person. No, this is quite difficult. You need to do a lot of things, but it's nice you have more projects, because I really enjoy Smart Girl, and I hope you have the possibility to do something like this, because it's especially in the Spanish market, because for example, the sci-fi club, the first sci-fi club in Finland was opened in 1954 in the University of Turku. Now the FinCon is the Finnish Sci-Fi Convention is in the Turku University. I attend 2 years to do master class, but in 1954, I don't believe there are any similar in Spain. Not in the 50s, in the 60s, and even in the 70s, because there are not any real tradition of sci-fi in Spain. There are good authors in books and in comics, but they are very difficult to read and very difficult to find. In other places like here or United Kingdom and United States, the sci-fi in movies, in books, and even in comic books was quite common. But in countries like our country, they are not the same tradition. And it's nice when you, in my case, I return to my hometown. In that case, a comic convention, and I saw, because I remember in the Panini stand, there are a big advertisement. One of the advertisements from a Small Girl, and when I saw say, what is this? And I asked to Jose Luis, because I want to ask to another book from Evolution Comic, the Lincoln Brigade. I invite to Carles Esquembra and Pablo Durain for this event too. And I saw the poster of Smart Girl, and I told Jose Luis, what is Smart Girl? And when he began to explain me, who are you and what is your job? And my question is, a sci-fi comic published from a big company in Spain. He looked at me and say, hey, we are not the only. I say, but it's not normal, because normally are from English author, French author, but from someone from Spain, published from a small editorial company. It's not small because Evolution is part of Panini, but small town of comic made from someone from Spain and published in Spain was, wow, something changed. Because 5 years before, there are only a few examples of that, and the people don't spend time to read. And because it's true, people in Spain like to see TV. People in Spain like it to go to the movie theater. But unfortunately, people in Spain don't spend too much time reading if you compare with
the countries. Yeah, no.
the people that read too much. That's true. The people that like to read a lot, but there are not too many like this. If you compare, and it's a huge country, and you see the list of how many people read normally in Spain. And now with the pandemic, the situation changed for worse, for better, because people need to spend more time inside home, and it's when the people understand that to read is a good idea to spend your time. But before the pandemic,
no.
unfortunately, no.
And besides, I
Fernando,
think yes.
sí.
No, I think there's another limit, and it's that for Spanish writers. I mean, of course, we have the problem with the Spanish market, with the Spanish so-called industry. That there isn't such a thing as an industry of comic books, so they have to publish outside. So in France, they were able, many writers, I mean, or some writers, to put across their own stuff. Like I don't know, Canary, he wrote Black Sad. But I mean, and many others. I will forget a lot, but many others. But in the American market, it's been quite of a limit to be a writer if you were not Anglo-Saxon. I mean, of Anglo-Saxon culture. Of course, there were some exceptions. For example, I mean, Polar, but Victor Fernandez, and some other exceptions. But it's still limit. So they really are really very open to accepting artists from many places in the world. But then, as
We're
regards
not fighter.
writers,
It's true.
that's
There
not.
are only a few.
It's funny, but I think, I mean, all the barriers are there to be broken and to be torn down, and that will be the next one, I think, because I mean, they're really. I mean, we got to give them the credit. They're really open to sensibilities, to diversity more and more, and I think that the next barrier will be to buy new scripts from different sensibilities, different countries, different cultures. I think that would be the next barrier to
And
be.
I think it's necessary. One of the thing I spent the last 2 years try to do this part of the Helsinki Comics Festival, and to show to the Finnish people and wherever, because if we use this language wherever in every place of the world have the capacity is capable to hear and see us, is to show things that make with a different approach, different sensibility. Because I know that we live in a global world, but the background for a Finnish guy is a totally different from that the background of you of me. And you move in some area, I move in another area, you live in some place, I live in some place. And I think it's good when you have the opportunity to read different examples. It's one of the for example, in the movie industry, when I moved to Finland, the only example from Nordics movie was from Ingmar Bergman. It's the only, normally the only Lars von Trier, but Lars von Trier is more from the Finnish, the last decade of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. But before that is Ingmar Bergman. Yeah?
Rare.
Yes, but there are not too many examples. When I moved here, I begin to see movies from Finnish director, Norwegian, Swedish, Icelandic, Danish, and it's when I understand that it's possible to find. Now, one of the things I try to do inside the Cultural Foundation I am working is to show these movies, to show what is possible to see in a movie theater here in Finland or in Norwegian and in Stockholm or in Oslo or wherever, because people it's true that there are many writers from these countries and some TV series from this country, but the movie industry in Spain is only open to some countries, and people don't know that it's possible to find a good horror movie made in Finland or in Norwegian. But David is not only is possible to find in Italy, because there are a few traditions with the Gallo, are in United Kingdom and United States. No, this is not true. There are really, really good examples made here in Finland or in any other Nordic countries. And I think this is the good. This is the when someone gave me this opportunity, I really enjoy to show different sensibilities. And I hope it's true. I hope the especially the big editorials in United States understand that it's good to show the normal characters, the main character, the main street character. I don't like the word, but it's true, with different eyes, because, for example, there are one one example that the people don't have any idea because it was not so famous, a Spider-Man made in India, for example, or a Spider-Man made in Italy from one of the most amazing comic book artists that draw a duck, Giorgio Cavazzano. There are one made from Panini in Italy with the sensibility from a Italian guy, not American guy.
Yeah.
And it's when you see Spider-Man from India or Spider-Man from Italy, it's not the same that the Spider-Man made from someone in United States or in France. And I think there are a few examples that made in different countries with different writers, is when you really understand that it's possible to show different things to show the thing you believe you know in a different way. But it's true. It's
Exactly. Yes, and it's something that it's been going on in France for many years. They're really open-minded to different sorts of stories. But it's about storytelling. It's about the way you deal with a character, and
exactly.
storytelling. It's related to mythology, to culture, and it varies from one country to the other. And that's the richness of it. How one same character can be told from different, can be described from different perspectives. That would be
And
great for the industry.
so is it one character grow? I
Yes.
think this is the good thing when you understand when you read 20 different approach from the same character, and in some way you really like every of these 20 approaches, when you understand that this character is really good, because this at last this character is the way to someone to say something, and is this character have the capacity to change to one subject to other, one mentality to other, and when you read and say, hey, this sounds nice, is when you understand that this character is incredible, because sometimes the character is good only when with the original author or some group or small group of authors, but when the character is has the capacity to mutate and an X-Men, is when you really understand that this character is
It's
incredible.
universal.
Exactly, I think.
I was thinking, I mean, just while you were talking, I mean, because we of course we're demanding like openness to other cultures and other countries that they have a strong industry in comics. But what about, I mean, imagine like a Mortale Filemon written by a Chinese writer, or
For
a
example,
Trompetechos written by a German writer and artist. How would it change?
yes, but it's a really good example because you have I told you there are a Finnish version of Mortadelo y Filemon, Ali Japali, and it's very famous in Finland. And if you want to find, there are 40 albums published in Finland between 1973, the year you were, between 1973 to 2006. But there are one series at 29 albums. This series is quite expensive. If you want to, and it's not in hardcover, in soft cover, but if you want to find the 29 albums, you need to pay between 250 300 euros. It's not, it's really expensive, but it's true. Anyone believes that it's possible to do something like this, and I really like to see, for example, a Chinese version of Mortadelo y Filemon. It's like the Star Wars manga. The people that really like Star Wars and the Star Wars comic normally don't talk about the Star Wars manga, and I really like the approach because the author that made the episode 4, 5, and 6 not only use many things that you never seen in the screen. They use original screenplay. They use a different technique. Other example, there are people don't know, but there are one guy, Jiro Kuwata, a Japanese comic book artist that made Batman in the 60s.
Yeah, the bad manga, yeah.
The Batman manga, when the Batman TV series in United States was a big success. And this guy take a normal comic book with 24 pages and do something with, I don't know, 80 pages. And with the manga technique that in that moment, anyone know the difference, anyone know what is a manga. But even today, there are many people don't understand too much the difference, but I have, fortunately, they decide to publish only one time, because they published originally in the 60s and one time in English version. And when the first time I read, I say, wow, this is incredible, because it's the same idea, but with the Japanese way of doing this kind of things. And the normal comic book is 4 times more bigger. It's more, they have more action, it's more dynamic, it's more fun. And this is and it's when you understand that. And if you read now, not in the 60s, if you actually say, wow, someone did this in Japan in the 60s and look nice. And now there are another guy that after that there are different versions. Even Katsuhiro Tomo make a short story from Batman Black and White, like where look much better the car until the character, because Otomo like characters, or the Kia Samilla Batman, for example. And after all this is when you understand that Batman is a solid character, because it's the same, the face you draw is the same, how you draw the car is the same, how you draw the Catwoman or the Penguin or the Joker. At last, it's Batman, Joker, and the character you really like for the last 80 years. And I really like this idea. And I don't know if the new owner of Mortadelo y Filemón like the idea, but in the next Barcelona Comic Convention, if you and me attend, I think it's a good idea to talk with someone and say, what do you believe this? Because probably, I think it's a good idea to offer to the different comic book from different part of the world, including Finland, to make his own version of Mortadelo y Filemón. Probably will be really, really fun.
Yes, yes, I think so.
Probably, I suppose there are something, wow, because a manga version of Mortadelo y Filemón, I don't know, maybe it's too much for the Spanish. But I think it's a really good idea. You put the right example. Is a Chinese version of Mortadelo. I never think about that, but after that, I need to think about this idea, because it's a really, really nice idea. Wow, Chinese version of Mortadelo y Filemón. Wow, this sounds really good. Fernando, has been a great pleasure and great honor to meet with you. I invite to everyone to order the English. Well, if you read Spanish, because there are many people that here in Finland actually read, understand, and even write Spanish quite well. You want to read the original version? Good. It's not order the English version of Small Girl. In theory, will be possible to find in the in the libraries in October. And please read Blade Runner Origin and go to Fernando social media, webpage, and wherever. And I hope, I don't know when, because the idea is that you move to here to Finland to say hello in front of the people, but there are some pandemic that close this door. But I hope in a near future we have the opportunity to sit down to talk about wherever you want, like today. Thanks from share all your experience, your ideas, how you do these kind of things. And I hope you enjoy, and I'm very grateful you accept the invitation, because I invite to you 1 year and a half, and at last we have the opportunity to have this meeting.
Well, I mean, thank you a lot. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I really hope that we can go on chatting and having new interviews like this one. And well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be there.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. And please take care, stay safe, and enjoy this event and the next meeting and the next virtual exhibition and everything around the Helsinki Comics Festival 2021.